welcome to the Gamer World, the funniest program on Mexican TV. Today we have a special program for our lovers of horror video games. With us we have Cesar, a professional horror video games player,
Hello,
Abiam, a streamer and YouTuber who broadcast horror video games,
Hello.
and Santiago, a gamer who loves horror video games.
Hello, everyone.
Well, to start the program, we are going to talk about the most popular horror games of the moment. Cesar, what are your favorites?
I'm also of Resident Evil 4. It is a very well made game and has great balance between horror and action.
I'll stick with The Last of Us. It's a very emotional game and has a very well developed characters.
I'm also a fan of The Last of Us. It's a very realistic game and has a very hard history.
Well, we already have a good list of horror video games to start with. Now, let's talk about the different types of horror video games. Abiam, can you explain to us the different types of horror video games that exist?
Of course, horror video games can be classified into several types depending on their focus. Different types of horror games can be classified according to their main focus. Below are some of the most common subgenres. Action and horror video games combine elements of both genres. The player must fight against enemies and obstacles, but must also avoid being scared. Survival horror video games focus on the survival of the player. The player must find resources, solve puzzles, and avoid enemies to survive. Psychological horror video games focus on creating a feeling of unease and discomfort in the player. They use techniques such as atmosphere, narration, and unexpected turns to create feeling uncertainty. Sudden scare video games rely on the use of unexpected scares to scare the player. These scares are usually sudden and violent and are used to create a feeling of tension and anxiety. Reverse horror video games focus on the role of the purser. The player controls a murderer or monster who must catch his victims.
Thank you, Abiam. Now, let's talk about the different elements that make up a horror video game. Cesar, could you explain to us the different elements that make up a horror video game?
Of course, horror video games are made up of several elements, which are essential to creating an effective horror experience. 1. Settings. The setting is one of the most important elements in a horror video game. Plot. The plot of a horror video game is usually dark and sinister. It often involves themes such as death, violence, or evil. The plot can be used to generate suspense, confusion, and fear in the player. Characters. The characters in horror video game are usually vulnerable and easy to identify with. Often they are normal people who find themselves in a situation of extreme danger. Characters can be used to generate empathy in the player and make them feel more involved in the story. Enemies. The enemies in a horror video game are usually supernatural or monsters. Begins, they are often hostile and dangerous and may attack the player. With warning, enemies can be used to create fear and tension in the player.
Thank you, Cesar. Now, let's talk about the different ways for playing horror video games. Santiago, can you give you some tips for playing horror video games?
Of course, here are some tips for playing horror video games. 1. Choose the right game. There are many different types of horror games, from action and shooter games to psychological horror. Choose a game that suits your taste and your level of fear tolerance. 2. If you want to feel really scared, play in a quiet, dark place where you won't be disturbed. 3. Don't rush. Take your time to explore the environment and discover all the secrets. Horror video games are usually more effective when you let yourself be carried away by the history. 4. Don't be afraid to give up. If you're getting too nervous, don't feel obligated to keep playing. There are many other horror games that you can try. Some more specific tips will be: 1. Use headphones. Sound is fundamental part of the atmosphere of horror games. Headphones will you help hear the whispers and footsteps that stalk you. 2. Turn off the light, and as mentioned above, playing in the dark environment will help you feel more immersive in the experience. 3. Play with friends. Playing with friends can be a good way to overcome fear and enjoy the experience in a more relaxed way. Some games I recommended are Resident Evil 7, Bioshock, Silent Hill 2, The Evil Within, Alien Isolation, and Outlast.
Thank you, Santiago. Well, that's all for today. We hope you enjoyed this special program about horror video games. See you next week.
Bye bye.
Goodbye.
Members and participants.
Montero, Carranza, Renata.
Mora, Arellanos, Santiago.
Barragan, Diaz, Cesar, Alejandro.
Vicente, Perzaval, Abiam.
Thank you so much for watching. See you next time.